Okay, so I have removed the top cap here off of the frame. As you can see, I just went around it with a cutoff wheel and sliced through that weld, actually directly above the weld, and popped it off of there with a chisel and a hammer. It took about 5 minutes to do that. A guy will just have to go around now and clean this weld off. I like to use these flat discs. They're just a sanding disc for your grinder that it doesn't gouge near as bad as a hard wheel. Leaves more of a polished finish, a little more forgiving. We'll just go around with that and clean all that off. We'll also use that here and here. We get that done, we're pretty much ready to fit the hardtail up. Here's the frame itself. This is how you would get it unless you order a complete kit. The complete kit would come with the oil tank bracket already installed in here. So that would just depend on whether you buy just the frame or if you buy the complete kit. So I'm going to go ahead and clean these welds up, and we'll get back to showing you how to fit them up. So here I have ground down all the welds here, all the way around. The two tabs that were here. Go ahead while you're grinding and remove the paint from this area right here. And I have already went ahead and trimmed these back. I'll show you how I did that. Basically, the hardtail kit comes with this fish mouth right here that is welded right into the frame. And your goal is to trim the factory tubes back enough that this fish mouth will end up butting up right against the back of the backbone right across here. A lot of guys call and ask, hey, do you slug these? Do we need to put a slug inside this tube? No. If you can fit it nice, no, you don't need to. This is a 1/4 inch thick plate here, which is a lot thicker than the original frame. You're going to weld that to this. Those slugs aren't really going to help with strength enough to worry about. But for the sake of this video, I have trimmed these off a little bit extra far. That way, if you do choose to do it that way, or if you just make a mistake and cut a little bit too much off, we can show you how to put it together with the slugs. That way you don't have to weld a bunch of big gaps shut. So I've actually trimmed these back about 3/16 of an inch further than I normally would, just to show you guys how to do it with the slugs if you choose to. For the slugs, we just use some 1-inch tubing, little short pieces. This is probably about 3/4 of an inch long, fits up inside there nice and snug. You'll just want to stick those up inside when you put the frame on, and they'll kind of slide back into the other tube and fill that gap. For the bolts on the bottom, you just use your factory 2 transmission bolts here. There are plenty of threads. This plate is also a 1/4 of an inch thick, but there is plenty of threads on these bolts. You're still going to have a lot of threads holding all that together. There's no sense in going out and buying longer bolts just for that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this kind of snugged up here. You can, as you can see, I'm doing all this one-handed, holding the camera in one hand and the frame in the other. So it really is pretty simple to do. Once you get it all slid up on the bottom, those 2 bottom bolts there are going to line up your frame left and right for you where it attaches to the factory frame. At the top, as you can see, the goal was to have that fish mouth butt up against the backbone, and as you can see, I have about a 3/16 inch gap to weld now, and that's where those slugs will come in. So I'm going to go ahead and set the camera down for a minute and tighten up these bolts, and we'll show you how to align your frame so the axle plates are where they need to be, left and right.